Welcome to Florida Waters Weekly with Adam Dubbin. I'm from SafeWaterWatersNow.org, and what this show is about is talking about the various issues that Florida is facing as far as water and the environment as a whole is concerned. So, what I'd like for y'all to do, if you're following along, is well, I'll go ahead and say hi to everybody here. I see Lynn. Hey, Lynn. And hey, Michael. Great to see you, buddy. Great to see all of you. So I've included in the video link here a page here that you can open up, and that will take you to all the things I'm going to talk about. That way you can have all of these pieces of information for your reference, and also helps you follow along with what's happening. And in between, I'll stop and look at the comments, and we'll try to make this interactive, or as interactive as possible. So, I want to start with current events around Florida. First thing I want to talk about is sewage. We actually have a couple of stories here from both coasts. The first story here is, if Ellington smells Tuesday, this is why. So earlier this week they had a raw sewage spill in Ellington, which is near Bradenton over in the Tampa Bay area. And so what happened was they had a spill as that happens in urban areas, and we'll talk a little bit about why we're concerned about that. But so this was a spill that actually ended up being worse. So they first thought that over 5,000 gallons of raw sewage spilled from a 48-inch force main near the intersection here, right near the water. The pollution did get into the Manatee River. So a couple days later, there was another report at the Bradenton Herald, and they actually say that the amount was closer to 12,000 gallons. So these are the type of sewage spills that we're seeing, and we're seeing them on a weekly basis. So I bring this up because it seems like something that is part of being in civilization, being in an urbanized environment. But really, we shouldn't be seeing it this much. And I certainly here in Florida, because our waters are so precious, we need to curtail this as much as possible. So back onto task here. The story here says, while initially thought to be more than 5,000 gallons of raw sewage, the updated amount of spillage is an estimated 12,000 gallons, the utility spokeswoman said. So they're going to be doing lab results and such on that. So that was one side of the state. And then the other side of the state, Melbourne, Florida, so this is Brevard County, they had a small spill too. Well, not that small, 400,000 gallons of raw sewage into the O'Galley River. So I apologize, not small at all. And they only have to pay just under $4 grand for that incident. So I wanted to bring this one to your attention because here we go, another sewage spill, and it doesn't seem like there's much in the way of accountability here. That small little slap on the wrist doesn't seem like all that much. And it says here, if you go down in the article, they have a few more instances. So back in September, a sewer force main in Indian Harbor Beach leaked nearly 1.5 million gallons of sewage. 733,000 gallons into the ground, 578,000 gallons into the nearby Oars and Paddles Canal, and then 210 into a nearby stormwater pond. November 18th, they had an agreement here with the DEP, giving the county 1 year to replace a 1.1 mile section of county force main. So they've been putting pressure on them to fix these things, but it doesn't seem to be happening right now. And it goes on, this article mentions a few other fines and other things that happen. So go ahead and, when you get a chance, go through that so you can see what's happening with that. Okay, next thing I want to talk about, talking about sewage, the St. Pete bird kill. Now this was first brought to my attention this weekend by Zach Raskin, one of our water protectors who happens to be over there. And so this first list, these all kind of go in chronological order, these articles that I have here. So there's a mystery in the water of there's a mystery in the water in St. Petersburg. Something's killing pelicans and making other birds sick. And so I have seen some video from what was happening out there, and we weren't really sure. So as we go through the articles here, Charlie Crist, former Republican, now Democrat, representative, he has called on the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to investigate the troubling deaths of more than 20 pelicans and egrets in the Tampa Bay area last week, as well as the massive beach killing of false killer whales, which I'll talk about in a bit. This weekend resulted in more than 80 deaths of these mammals. So it's good to see a bureaucrat, good to see a politician stepping forward and saying, "Hey, let's check this out." Now, as the story unfurls, here we go. So, a Petersburg mystery: why are pelicans dying at Riviera Bay and Coffee Pot Bayou? So, this is a little bit of a. This was an article that was written on the 17th, on Tuesday, by a Times staff writer, just kind of talking about what was going on. So, dead birds have been turning up since Wednesday. So, the previous Wednesday. The sanctuary is caring for 14 pelicans that are still alive but lethargic and paralyzed, he said. They appear to have been poisoned by something, but by what is the mystery. Another 22 died, he said, along with an egret that may or may not be part of the pelican die-off. So, something's fishy here. But there was a water test that was done and published a couple days ago in the St. Peter's blog. Riviera Bay Coffee Pot Bayou water test results near normal, St. Pete says. So, initial test results from the water samples taken from the waters in and around Coffee Pot Bayou and Riviera Bay have shown no abnormalities, but testing of sick and dead pelicans will continue, St. Petersburg officials said. So, there doesn't seem to be anything as far as the standard pathogens that one would find in those waters that could be causing this, but this is not something that naturally happens. So, or at least it doesn't naturally happen in the case of, in the sense of what we're seeing here. You will see animals die off from time to time, but this seems a bit fishier. So this is something that we'll want to keep our eyes on. This is a story that is still continuing. So let me take a quick look and see. Let's see, and we've got Landon Dowling. Hey, Landon. Dee and Naomi. Hey, how y'all doing? Okay, so one second here. I'm going to do something. All right, so on to the next thing. So we have algal blooms. So more algae tests keep Port St. Lucie Park closed over Martin Luther King holiday weekend. So over last weekend, they had some issues. So this first article that I have here, this is Tyler Treadway's, the Tampa, the TC Palm, and unconvinced by state test results showing non-toxic blue algae in a park lake, city officials plan to test the water at O.L. Peacock Senior Park for themselves. In the meantime, the park on Dreyfus Boulevard between Rosser and Gatlin Boulevards, which the city shut down on January 6th, will remain closed over the 3-day holiday weekend. So there's actually a follow-up to this. So actually, it appears that, let's see, no, I'm sorry, there's no follow-up to that. There's actually another article that I have here. This next article, it's kind of a somewhat contradictory article, talking about how things are kind of rebounding down in that area. And this is actually the same publication that released this. So what we're looking at here is they're talking about going out on the river and seeing alligators and fauna and flora that they hadn't seen. So give this article a read and see what you think about what it says. And then what I also wanted to mention here, last in the algae blooms section, Donald Trump learned about algae blooms from Brian Mast. So Brian Mast is a politician from here in Florida, who a U.S. representative who has been doing some good things for our water issues. And so here it's saying that U.S. Representative Brian Mast said he talked to Trump during a visit to Mar-a-Lago about 3 weeks ago about the algae blooms that plagued the St. Lucie River last summer. Mast said that he tried to bring the issue home for Trump by mentioning the blooms expanded into Lake Worth Lagoon near Trump's estate in Palm Beach. So hopefully, Representative Mast will keep his voice in President Donald Trump's ear. We want to make sure that, as skeptical as we are about the now president, we need to make sure that we have our politicians in place to put pressure on him. So if we can lean on Representative Mast to be that person, then I'm all for supporting him, regardless of what letter he has behind his name or after his name. So let's see where we are. Okay, we need to research what the penalties are for this, D. So I'm thinking the penalties going back to the algae blooms or the bird kill. I'll give you a second to answer that. Um, what I do want to talk about next, though, is septic tanks. So we've got a couple of articles here. Septic tanks sought as a part of home sales. So this was published on the 19th, so just yesterday. The lead is pointing in part to water quality problems in the Indian River Lagoon. A Brevard County House member Wednesday proposed requiring septic tank inspections as part of the sales of homes and other types of real estate. So basically, you need to. It's another. It's another thing that you need to ensure that your house is up to standard with before you sell it. Interestingly, this is a bill filed by a Republican from Palm Bay. So what we're looking at is more regulation. So just want to kind of point that out. I also want to go to the next one. So there's this next article that I have linked here is related to the one I just discussed. This one just has a lot more in it. So this one, in fact, let me tell you what Representative Fine or Representative Fine has to say. So there's no question that leaky septic tanks are contributing to water quality challenges across our state, including our beloved Indian River Lagoon. This measure would begin to tackle this issue by ensuring that septic tanks are inspected as part of the suite of inspections that regularly take place during a home sale, so that buyers who are informed about the properties they are considering buying are fully informed. So he says the bill would begin to address septic tank issues without burdening taxpayers or people on fixed incomes who have no plans to sell their homes. So on the surface of it, looks pretty legit. We certainly have a problem in this state, especially in the more northern part, with septic tanks contributing to a lot of our nitrate, nitrite, and phosphorus pollution. So it'll be interesting to see where this legislation goes, and I'll definitely be paying attention to it. Okay, RE Manatee County, penalties for sewage spill. So yeah, you would think that there are. So when I talked earlier about the other places with the sewage spills, so so Melbourne, when I discussed that one, I mentioned that down at the bottom part of that article, it discussed some of the civil penalties that were incurred on. The civil penalties were incurred upon the county itself. Interestingly, but we're talking about just small amounts. And this is something that I'm a little bit new to as far as the legal aspect to it. So it might be interesting to see how this little circle of fines and counter checks really works. Because I don't see that these fines are prohibitive in any way. I also don't see how fining the county for something that it should be paying for really does a lot either. So this is something we should think about a little bit more. So in Manatee County, I don't know for sure. But we should look into that and see what is going on there. So, next thing I want to talk about here, let me double check real quick. Thank you, Edna. Thank you very much. All right, I'll move on here. So, industrial wastewater. So we have this is the story. This is a two-part story. I've got two links here. The first link is Hillsborough may increase allowable levels of lead, other chemicals, and industrial wastewater. And this was published Wednesday, the 18th. This is the Tampa Bay Times, which is one of the more legit publications out there, if not the most legit, at least in Florida. So here, industrial plants, hospitals, and manufacturing facilities will be able to increase the amount of toxins they expel into Hillsborough County's wastewater system under new rules commissioners will consider Thursday. All right, so the proposal would increase the daily allowable levels of 9 substances in industrial wastewater. The allowable levels of lead would triple from 0.15 milligrams per liter to 0.45 milligrams per liter, and arsenic levels would more than double. Acceptable levels for one substance, silver, would decrease. That's kind of interesting. So while I'm not really on point with my reading and enunciation game tonight, I will move on and follow up here. So the next day, tomorrow, Thursday, January 19th, Hillsborough commissioners pass on raising toxin levels in industrial wastewater for now. So it seems like they backed off on it for now. So the lead here is Hillsborough County commissioners delayed a vote Thursday that would have raised the acceptable levels of lead and other toxins in wastewater from manufacturing plants and hospitals. So there's a quote here from Pat Kemp, a commissioner. There is nobody asking to exceed the current standards, so why can't we keep them the most stringent? That is the question of the day. You know, I don't know why we don't get that question more often in these political proceedings. So there's no reason to increase it, so why do it? So they have turned it down for now, and so what it says, the county's industrial wastewater discharge regulation ordinance was created back in 1985, and about 21 facilities must abide by those standards. So, you know, that's an old standard, and I understand, you know, the desire to revise. But from the sound of it, it doesn't sound like the revision was based on any sort of scientific or objective measures. So, and it has the smell of money on it, doesn't it? That people were trying to cut some corners and not pay their dues. All right, so let's move on to climate change. So I've got some interesting stories here. You know, we all talk about climate change. We know that it's an important thing to be considering. And now with the incoming government, both here in Florida and in D.C., climate change is not really something that is seen as a legitimate threat. But what we've got here, this first piece I've got, is rising sea levels pose potential threat to southwest Florida coast. Now, the southwest Florida coast is actually a fairly conservative area of the state. So it's going to be interesting to see how these conservative constituents react to you know, the objective results that we're going to be seeing more and more. So let me get to the lead here. So rising sea levels in the Gulf of Mexico are becoming a cause for concern for millions living along the coast. Scientists predict the water may rise as much as 2 feet by 2050, flooding marshes and other low-lying areas, and by the end of the century could reach up to 6 feet. Climate Central reported. Now that's certainly, you know, that's certainly within the realm of possibility. Now this is reported by Wink News. This is a local news source, so I'm not really going to go too in depth into what's being said here because it's really just very superficial, as local news tends to be. But it's good to see that it's being discussed in the mainstream media. Now, again, another conservative community and evangelistical conservative at that is Pensacola. So the next link I have here is the City of Pensacola Task Force Tackling Climate Change. I saw this headline and I said, wow, I'm glad to see this. So let's see what it says here. The lead is a new task force tasked with studying local climate change issues will hold its first meeting this month. That was a very, very cumbersome sentence there. So the Climate Mitigation and Adaptation Task Force will meet at 3 p.m. January 26th at the Hagler Mason Conference Room, located on the second floor of Pensacola City Hall. So if you're in Pensacola and you're interested in climate change, interested in the effects it has on your city, and you want to have a voice, here we go. This is an excellent opportunity. So our community, being a coastal community, is especially vulnerable to climate change, says Wagley. And this Wagley is Christian Wagley, whose organization 350 Pensacola proposed the task force several years ago. So this is the driving force. He says also that stronger storms and rising sea levels affect us disproportionately. So we're interested in making sure our community can stand up. So that's great to see that they are being proactive over there, as they should be. So that is my reach out to the furthest reaches of the Panhandle. Going back to the other end of the Panhandle, we've got the nuclear waste issue down at Turkey Point plant. So this first article here is Florida Power and Light wins battle to store radioactive waste under Miami's drinking water aquifer. So the lead is South Florida sits atop two gigantic underground stores of water, the Biscayne and Floridan aquifers. Miamians get most of their drinking water from the upper Biscayne aquifer, while the government has used the lower portion of the Floridan aquifer to dump waste and untreated sewage, despite the fact that multiple studies have warned that waste could one day seep into the drinking water. All right, so now they want to put radioactive material down there. They've already been dumping stuff. I don't see it in here right away, but I have come across some studies and some fairly conclusive studies that there is an upward flow, and that the layers in between the aquifers are not completely impermeable. So, given the general hydrology and the general geology of the aquifer itself and the karst limestone that it consists of, it's pretty easy to see that, yeah, they're probably linked pretty closely. And you know, I am not a completely against nuclear power. There are things that we can talk about when it comes to that, but the disposal of its waste, or the removal of its waste from the power plants, we need to be doing a much better job of it and coming up with much better answers. Otherwise, it becomes harder and harder to be a fan, or even be, willing to come to the table when it comes to nuclear power. So that is that one. And then, so the next article I have linked in here, and I also have a link at the very bottom of my page here to the change.org petition. This next article just talks about South Florida environmentalists are not going to let this matter die. So Miami's Urban Paradise Guild, an organization dedicated to literally cleaning up inner city Miami, has started a change.org petition campaign to persuade Florida lawmakers to prevent FPL from storing its waste perilously close to South Florida's drinking water reservoir, the Biscayne Aquifer. Okay, so if you want to sign this petition, and I strongly encourage you to, please click on the highlighted portion in this article, or go down to the bottom of my page that you should be following along with, and there's a link there. All right, let me take a look at the comments real quick and see. Hey, Troy, it's great to see you, buddy. You're right, Michael. They do hate people, and we're actually going to talk in a minute about how much they want to take our money. So, Edna, you're right. It doesn't take a genius at all. And, it's almost like we're being played for fools here, isn't it? Almost. So, water war. I'm getting back to the old water war. I bring this up a lot because it somehow keeps getting pushed back into the background hum of all the issues we've had. And this has been going on for as long as I can remember living here. So the next chapter in the water war saga, as I seem to mention it every week, is Alabama warily considers entering water wars. All right, so this is the Apalachicola and Carabel, the Times. So what we've got here is, as Florida and Georgia try to settle a complicated water use dispute this month, Alabama has filed a letter saying it might need to intervene if its water resources are impacted. So now Alabama is essentially throwing its hat into the ring here. This could get interesting. What it says here is, to this end, Alabama is willing to participate in any negotiations between Florida and Georgia that address this issue, and will separately ask Florida and Georgia to include Alabama in any such negotiation. So I don't think this is unreasonable on their part, but when more parties get involved, things get stickier. So this is sort of a stay tuned and see where this goes. So this next link that I have here is tangential. So this is Alabama is raising concerns about a U.S. Supreme Court representative's directive to Florida and Georgia for resolving their water dispute by getting water from elsewhere. So I actually mentioned that part last week on my show here. So this stems back from Florida back in 2013, blaming Georgia for the collapse of Apalachicola Bay's oyster population, and had the U.S. Supreme Court try to intervene by placing a cap on Georgia's consumption. And that is just another chapter, and it goes way, 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 way back. So this is what's going on now. So Alabama has entered the ring. So we'll be paying attention to what goes on, and next week I'll probably have an update on what is happening with that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is dredging. So dredging, we've got two instances of dredging here, two different stories here, and I'm going to talk about this first one. So this is County leaders declined to be obstructionists on Big Pass dredging. So this is Sarasota. So what we're talking about here is dredging around Lido Key Beach. Um, so the lead here is Sarasota leaders did not want to be obstructionists, and the quotes come from the article. It's not me just being an air quoter. When they choose, without discussion, earlier this week not to appeal state environmental officials' decision to advance the controversial dredging of Big Pass. The proposed project, led by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and City of Sarasota, not the county, all right, so it's the city, calls for the dredging up of 1.2 million cubic yards of sand from the pass to rebuild more than 1.5 miles of Lido Key Beach. But the plan has been criticized for years by Siesta residents and groups that fear changes to the channel could harm their key's iconic beaches, putting them against neighbors on Lido and city officials. This is a good example of one of the more local water issues that you'll see. And, what they're looking at here is Siesta Key leaders have repeatedly turned to the county to try to force more reviews of the project. And they had hoped again last week that the county would join in the appeals of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's December 22nd notice of intent to issue a permit for the project. Interesting dredging issue here. And this is related to some of the other things, I mentioned a couple weeks ago how they were talking about Miami Beach bringing Bahamian sand over for the beaches versus dredging around their area. So this is another part of the state dealing with a similar type of dredging issue, and they have different problems that surround it, and they have different answers, different solutions. So one of the things that Safe Florida Waters now is aiming to do, and this program, is to bring us all together and to start seeing how we all have similar issues, but different. And we have different ways of solving them, but maybe they are useful to others. So that's the one dredging. Now this other one I bring up because I want to bring to attention, because this is something that people who are against the pipelines are very, very concerned about. And so this is Port Canaveral is dredging their channel. So Port Canaveral is starting a process for channel deepening. So the lead here is Port Canaveral commissioners on Wednesday will consider the next step in what could be up to a 10-year process to deepen the port's channel to handle larger cargo ships. Port staff is recommending commissioners approve spending $1.4 million on two related projects. You can read what those projects are, but what the channel is currently 44 feet deep, and they want to get it to 47 or 48 feet in depth. They also want to consider extending the current entrance channel by 2 to 2.7 miles further into the ocean to accommodate the deeper channel. So this is, when I talk about people who are opposed to the pipeline being concerned about things like this, the big concern is that these hydrocarbons that are coming through the state are not for our consumption, but in fact for export. And so there is talk of building a liquefied natural gas plant over in Brevard County near Merritt Island, where NASA has their space pad. There's also, we have it on the west coast of Florida too, Citrus County. So they're building liquefied natural gas plants, and they're also building pipelines coming off the center spine of the Black Snake, if you will. So when we see things like this, when we hear about Jacksonville dredging out, I thought the last I heard was from 48 to 52 feet. I have to double check, don't quote me on that, but that is what I thought I saw recently. That makes us, more concerned that maybe they are really just shoving this stuff through us just to send it out. And, really, that's not acceptable. So that's what I have about dredging here. Then there's the dolphin die-off you may or may not have heard of. So this weekend, there are false killer whales that had died in the Gulf of Mexico west of the Florida Everglades. And so Blair Mays of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Fisheries Service told reporters that the Coast Guard had confirmed sightings Saturday of the black dolphins in the shallows on the western edges of Everglades National Park. So 82 of the animals had died or been euthanized by Monday afternoon. It's unclear what the cause was. They're not really sure. I have a follow-up article here. This was published yesterday. This is the Naval Daily News. Officials say they won't remove the carcasses of large dolphins stranded in shallow waters off the western edge of Everglades National Park. So, over 80 false killer whales died or were euthanized, as I mentioned before. And officials said that the decomposing carcasses will fuel the food web by providing nutrients to scavengers such as vultures, sharks, and crabs. So, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, as they say. Let me take a look here. Yep, John. Eric, they're definitely, it definitely looks like they are going to be exporting. It just seems that all the things are starting to add up. So, let me move on to water availability. So what I've got here, I've got two different articles. And I guess I want to use this to sort of show the two sides of the narrative. So this first article from the Bradenton Herald, says Manatee has enough water through 2034. All right, so that's a long time, right? 2034. All right, so, but the lead here is one thing is for certain: Manatee County will need more water one day. But whether that additional water will come from the county increasing its production or buying water from another source, such as Peace River, Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority, has yet to be determined. So this is kind of a really misleading headline because, they'll have enough water through 2034 if they can find out where their water is going to come from. So I don't know much about this particular journalist, or, there's this article kind of goes on, and it says, let's see, it basically says, yeah, we've got the water, but if we grow, we're going to need more water. So it's kind of, read through it, and towards the end, there's actually some interesting stuff here. They're talking about here the minimum flow on the Manatee River, which could result in less water for public supply. So the article actually, when you get into the guts, talks a little bit about some of the regulations and legislations that protect our waters. And so really, this could have been better approached by saying, we need to be more conservative of our waters if we want to last another 20 years, or 15 years, as they're saying here. So misleading headline is misleading, as they say. Now, this other article I have here, this is from the Herald Tribune. Forum, collaboration needed to counter looming water shortage. Now, this is more my speed. So the lead here is, if Florida's population continues to grow, the state's drinking water supplies could be 1 billion gallons a day short of meeting the demand by 2030. A state senator warned about 120 people gathered at a forum on regional water issues on Thursday. Right, so the last article says, yeah, we got water till 2034. Now we've got a state senator saying, no, we don't. So we have to be proactive, says Senator Jack Latvala of Clearwater, Republican chairman of the General Appropriations Committee. So here's a conservative, a Republican, who also sees that we have a water issue and is willing to face the issue straightforward. So I want to make clear that we got to, R or D, we've got to find these people who are actually going to step up and say something for us and help support them. So it goes on, this article says, Floridians should not, quote, wake up one day in 2030 and realize the opportunity to build significant water infrastructure has passed, says State Representative Ben Albertson from Lakeland, Republican as well. We need to build coalitions. We need to raise the bar. So I encourage you to read this article. This is really a solid article that includes a lot of things that hopefully these politicians and these persons are speaking in earnest and not just blowing hot air, because this is the type of thing we need. We need to make sure that we look at these things, because we're already facing the water shortage. Anybody who lives in really most parts of Florida have at least experienced one water shortage, or one instance where your water was regulated and you couldn't use your sprinklers on certain days, or couldn't wash your cars, things like that. So this is not a new rodeo for us. Let me take a look at comments here. All right, thanks, John. Thanks, Eric. I don't know why I keep calling you John, buddy. And so let's see. Let me do something here real quick. And then I'll move on. Okay, so back to where we were before. So that was water availability. And then there's a few other things I want to talk about here. So we've got the Senate sets the course for St. John's River Plan. So what we've got here, popping this open real quick, and I'm just kind of run through these last ones because these are just sort of little bits and pieces of what's happening around here. So a proposal to steal money towards protecting a St. John's River, the St. John's River, along with its tributaries or lakes in the Keystone Heights region, may be set for smooth sailing in the Senate. So Senator Rob Bradley holds leadership posts in 2 of the 3 committees slated to vet a measure he's backing that would set aside $35 million annually for the river. So this is good news. Interestingly also, so I'm liking this Bradley guy a lot. Last week, Bradley announced his support for Negron's latest effort to protect the Everglades by buying land south of the Lake Okeechobee as part of an effort to store and to store. So this is bad grammar here. To store clean water and reduce releases from Lake Okeechobee into the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie estuaries. All right, man. So I'm going to give this guy my thumbs up. Senator Rob Bradley, you're doing okay, man. Just keep doing what you're doing and live by your word. And the people will see it, and we will support you. Next one up. North Florida Waters Managers, first ever long-term usage supply plan. So what we've got in here real quick is, this is from Alachua, Florida, the first ever long-range plan for water use in a vast North Florida region, home to around 1.5 million people in 14 counties stretching over more than 8,000 square miles, was approved here on January 17th in a joint meeting of the governing boards of 2 water management districts. So you read on in here, basically they talk about how to distribute the water. Now, I want to mention a citation here. Dr. Robert Knight, founder and director of the Florida Springs Institute. I had the opportunity to work with him at the Florida Springs Institute Field School. He cited that a reduction of as much as 40% of the water flow for some rivers in the region, including Silver Springs and Suwannee River, and urged a halt to all new permitting for water use. So what they're doing here is they're talking about this. Basically, this is not a good thing, what we're seeing here. We need to curtail the removal of water from the Floridan Aquifer, especially in the Springs region. We also need to start enforcing the permits that are given for the amount of water that can be taken for farms. We've been talking before about how they give permits for such and such amount of water, but there's no meters on these wells, and there are no people going out and enforcing and checking. So those are the first things that need to happen before we see something like this, this supply plan. So go ahead and read through everything it says here. There are some good quotes in here that gives you kind of both sides of what's happening. Looks like I also see Mr. Quarterman here. So go ahead, read through this and see what you think. We've got my next one here is a county-approved $17 million renourishment project. So this is Panama City Beach. So this is basically actually another one of those beach erosion things. So they have, this is kind of expensive, but Panama City Beach is a tourist spot. And so their waters, their beach, is the cornerstone of their local economy. So this very short news blurb here helps to illustrate how important our waters are and how reliant we are on making sure that they are as pristine and as presentable to people from other places as possible. So they want to come back here. And it's also nice to live in, nice clean waters ourselves. All right, so the next one, like I said, I'm just going to run through these. Here we go. So district to keep funneling water to Florida Bay. All right, so this is Keys News. The ailing Florida Bay is set to get a bit fresher for good ones. Let me try that one again. I'm just going to go to the next one. So the South Florida Water Management District's governing board last week gave the go-ahead on several construction projects related to providing billions of gallons of fresh water annually to the large body of water at the southern edge of the Everglades National Park. So although the releases have been occurring since September under an emergency fixed by the district, those projects will look to turn that permanent. So this is good news. One of the things we talk about sending the water south isn't just getting the water out of Lake Okeechobee, isn't just refreshing and replenishing the Everglades, but also restoring the flow into Florida Bay. So go ahead and give this article a read. There's some good things in there. Sierra Club sues to stop FPL's $811 million rate hike. I'm not really going to go into the nut graph or anything of this, but this is related to the pipeline building and everything. This is basically, they are building all this infrastructure that we're not going to use, and they're trying to bill us for it. So we're looking at the number I've seen before is 21% hike from what we're paying currently. So this is what they do, you know. They build it on our backs, and they give us the bill. And we've heard the rhetoric of that same thing, so it shouldn't really surprise us. We should start being more proactive. So, next one. I'm going to do a little bit of better news, I think, these ones coming up. So, new artificial reef is coming to Manatee County. All right, so what they're going to do here is they're going to set up some diving infrastructure. So this is something that will bring more to the economy. And it sounds like they're going to be, actually I don't see exactly what they're going to do. I was going to say they're sinking boats, but I don't see right offhand what they're going to do. But go ahead and read through here. And I'm always a fan of new reefs, new areas for ecosystems to grow. Environmental protection, fracking ban, and criminal justice reform top local delegation requests. So this is one that I'm not going to go through. This is just a link I wanted everybody to have at their disposal. But Leon County residents are concerned about the environmental, aging, mental health, and criminal justice. That was also not a proper sentence. So I apologize for some of these grammatical errors. Some of them are just right here in front of me. So read through here, and it talks about the fracking ban and some other things that you'll probably want to think about. Now here's one that is a bit concerning. So this is Apopka, Florida. This is right next to where I am and right near where I grew up. And Apopka, Florida is a paragon for the algae problem and the water issues that we have in this state. So I always look over there as sort of a looking glass to what we're seeing here when it comes to water pollution. So they're having a wastewater plant problem over there. And it's saying here that last summer, Channel 9, who this article is attributed to, found out millions of gallons of contaminated water went into reclaimed water ponds and spray fields, seeping into the ground near homes and businesses in a community of 45,000 residents. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection said the water eventually goes into the aquifer. So, so this is pollution, you know, that is affecting people. So I talked earlier about how septic tanks are a problem. So this is basically just pouring a septic tank everywhere. So if you think having a contained septic tank is a problem, this type of stuff is even worse. So in your community, keep an eye out for this. And if this happens, make sure you get loud and vociferous and let everybody know that something's going down and you need to do something to address that. All right, so finishing up here, I've got here is preserving the local waterways. And this is a nice little article from Destin. This is the Destin log. And just kind of talks about ways of approaching preservation and what they did in their particular area, the Choctawhatchee Bay area. I think I said that correct. If I did, I pulled it off. So anyhow, give this article a quick read if you've got the time. And I'm going to finish up here with an interesting article, How Catching Junk Fish Cleans Up Central Florida Lakes. So typically, I am a catch and release type of person, but what they're saying here is that they're talking about pulling out shad. And so these are rough fish, hardly anyone eats. And they're tough. They're a tough haul for the 54-year-old Apopka man. But his harvest helped perform some heavy ecological lifting to revive what was once the most polluted lake in Florida. He's talking about Lake Apopka. And so I remember, man, it's probably been 2 decades now when they first introduced the gizzard shad. And so it says here The gizzard shad's body weight is 0.8% phosphorus, mostly in their bones, derived from the fish's food sources in the lake. So these shad are acting as a phosphorus sink. And it's actually one of the more successful examples of a biological solution to a biological problem. So what they do is they're harvesting them, and then it says, let's see. So this week, the St. John's Water Management District wraps up its annual gizzard shad harvest, a unique program that teams both government and businesses to extract the nutrients that fuel fish-killing toxic algae blooms. The program helped cut Lake Apopka's nitrogen and phosphorus levels in half over the past 2 decades. 2 decades, I was right. So it's a direct, cheaper way to remove the 2 algae-fueling nutrients from Florida's waters where shad reigns supreme, especially compared to stormwater projects, sewer plant upgrades, or septic tank removals. And it provides that sometimes just getting the shad out can be a vital piece of the ecological restoration puzzle. That last sentence kind of sucked. But anyhow, the lake has rebounded remarkably. In terms of a restoration technique, it's very cheap. So the district's program has removed almost 25 million pounds of gizzard shad from Lake Apopka since 1993, reducing nitrogen and phosphorus levels in the lake by more than half, in combination with other nutrient reduction methods. So the program typically removes about 1 million pounds of shad from the 30,000-acre lake annually. So this is one of those longitudinal studies in freshwater pollution here in Florida, and I will continue to talk about it and bring it up. It's the one that I have lived most closely to. So it's good to see that some of our efforts are coming to fruition. And so that began in 1993, so we're actually coming to the 2.5 decade mark with that. So let's take a look here. All right, so we've got everybody close your big bank accounts. So I mention this every week. I'll mention it again, and hopefully I'll remember to say it at the end. If you are in a big bank, and it really doesn't matter if your big bank is one of the ones that are on the list of supporters for the pipelines or any of the different things that you may be against, really put your money into your local economy. Put your money into local credit unions or local banks. Local credit unions have better rates. They tend not to have all of the abusive fines that the other ones will have. Not to mention that a lot of credit unions they operate on the ownership model. So what you're seeing is you not only have your money in a bank, but you actually own part of that institution. So I'll mention that again. Thank you, Daniel Goheen, for bringing that up. And let me get back to the news here. So I've got a section here on just Lake Okeechobee and the Everglades. And I'm going to just sort of read quickly the headlines. And if you're interested, go ahead and click in and see what it says inside. So first article I have is $2.4 billion reservoir proposal begins to show cracks. So I will open this up real quick and just mention. So Senate President Joe Negron's $2.4 billion plan to protect South Florida's waterways from another toxic algae sliming received a lukewarm legislative debut. Behind the scenes, the South Florida Water Management District was launching torpedoes. So this is WFSU that published this, and so you can look and see what it says in there. Analysis: Sugar growers add blast Lake Okeechobee Reservoir plan. So Sugar, as always, is doing everything they can to counteract people who want to clean the water, send it south. So that is another article that talks about it. Then I have an article here that the Army Corps of Engineers, reports progress on dike repairs. So the highlight of the 2016 season was approval of a dam safety modification report in August that identified features the Corps will build in the coming years to reduce the risk of dike failure. So the Corps is looking at ways to improve the dike, the Hoover Dike, which is basically the wall that holds Lake Okeechobee in. Creates a bowl, and this bowl essentially is a retention pond now for agriculture. So we don't want that to rupture or to fail. And if you follow my Facebook page on a daily basis, on weekdays I post the average level of Lake Okeechobee, And so the average level is just under 14 feet right now. So if one of those dikes were to fail, it's bad news. So we want to make sure that they continue to work on that. We also want to send the water south so that we don't have to depend on the dike as much as we do. Next headline, I'm just going to leave this one at the headline. Big Sugar hires 64 lobbyists, again, in Tallahassee to reinforce its closed-loop system of government. So Big Sugar being Big Sugar, you know, their money is dirty, and they're doing everything they can to keep a stranglehold on their place in this state. Court reinstates EPA rule allowing pumping dirty water unchecked. So what they're saying here, I'm going to open this one up. So South Florida water managers can keep moving dirty water from farms and suburbs into the Everglades and Lake Okeechobee without obtaining federal pollution permits, a divided U.S. appeals court ruled this week in New York. The ruling stems from a decades-long battle by the Miccosukee tribe and environmentalists to stop water managers from moving water from one body of water to another for supplies, flood control, and other purposes without first obtaining a federal pollution permit. Dirty water has been at the heart of the Everglades restoration, where marshes can quickly get choked by water rich in nutrients. Similar cases eventually surfaced around the country, with sporting groups and environmentalists similarly fighting to keep water, the dirty water, from natural areas. So, what we see here is, you know, this is something we're going to see more, I'm afraid, as the new administration starts to take hold, both in, again, Tallahassee. Well, not new in Tallahassee, but we certainly didn't get enough pro-water folks into our state government this time around. But this is something that is going to be the new normal. They're going to be allowed to pump those urban, suburban waters into the Everglades, into Lake Okeechobee, which is just going to exacerbate the entire issue that we have here. Then the last one is just a second article that talks about what I just talked about. So the decision was a 2-1 decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals in New York that countered a 2014 ruling by a district court which said that they needed a permit. So it looks like, that's not good news, is it? So this is a second article that actually kind of fills in the gaps where the first article didn't discuss. What we see here, though, it's hardly a victory for anyone in Florida, said Tania Gaglione, managing attorney for the Florida Office of Earth Justice, the nonprofit environmental law firm that represented the Florida Wildlife Federation, Friends of the Everglades, and Sierra Club in the multi-state case. This ruling allows polluted water, to flow unregulated into Lake Okeechobee, where it contributes to toxic algae outbreaks. And not only, I mean, I'll speak, not only is it the algae outbreaks we're worried about, but you think about all the industrial runoff that we have from our cars, from all these machineries that we use. We don't want to be concentrating that into the Everglades. So that ends that portion here. And so Landon says, yes, we don't want fracking. We certainly don't want fracking. Most of us are against it, and hopefully we can continue to be adamantly against it at all levels, in all places. So Eric John Canty says, we need a solid list of water-protecting politicians. We need to vote smart before our state is ruined. And I agree, Eric. And I'm now starting to see that there are these politicians that are being cultivated right now. There's a Tim Canova down in South Florida who seems to be really doing some of the right things. This Representative Mast, he also is somebody to keep an eye on. So we also need to ourselves start cultivating our own politicians, and if we can't count on other people to create the politics that we need, we've got to step up and be those politics. I mean, that's basically the essence of the Greek word where politics comes from. So it's incumbent upon us to make that happen, and hopefully we can get some younger people involved to start replacing some of these older people who may not be as in tune with our environmental movement as we would like them to be. So moving on here, Florida pipelines. So what I have here is basically just not all, but several of the articles that were published in the mainstream media about last weekend's movement, last weekend's demonstration, and then the direct action that took place on Monday. So if you missed it, at Suwannee River State Park, there was a mass civil disobedience that was held. We started at the park itself, where you go in and you park, and we marched through the woods to the site where the Sabal Trail pipeline is being drilled underneath the Suwannee River. We spent the full day there. There were people who were chained together with tubes over their arms to prevent any disruption from what they were doing, and they created circles where they protected other protesters. It was something else. I actually, in my weekly observations, I was going to talk a little bit about what I experienced, but down in the videos section, I have a couple of videos by a couple of my colleagues. Dylan Hansen has one, as well as Justin Harvey. So that go ahead and take a look at those, and then I've got 3 of my own there as well. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, but these are the articles that are pertinent to that. So again, we had a demonstration, and then on Monday, Martin Luther King holiday, we had 8 arrests. 2 of them who were bolted themselves to the water truck itself, and it resulted in incarceration. They are now out. They have been released, and we are very, very proud of them and their actions. And they were able to cause a disruption to the drilling process. So what we saw this weekend was well planned. Everything was done by the book. And it was good to see that level of organization. So moving on, I've got a section here called editorials. And I'm not going to read these, but I included these because they include a lot of really good thoughts, a lot of good perspective on what we're dealing with here. So there's an editorial, Kreisman's sewage claims smell funny. Carl Hyacins' Big Sugar slime flows north to Florida's capital. We've got an editorial, Protect the Everglades, not sugar farmers. We've got taxpayers should be wary of false sugar reform proposals. We've got point of view, it's time to choose, fracking or safe water. That's actually a good one. Then there's Dave Denslow, waiting is wrong answer to warming. So we've got fracking included there, we've got sewage included there, we've got big sugar included there, and we've got global climate change included there as well. So some good point of views, some good editorials. And then for the nerd people like me, I've got some research articles here that are focused more on sort of the more specific parts of geology and hydrology. And so these studies are of interest. I've read through them quickly, and they they kind of augment the tapestry that is scientific knowledge. So if you kind of want to look at, and see what's going on, and what's cool about reading some of these is, sometimes just in the introduction and such, if the article is well written, you can learn a lot about what's going on for that particular subject simply from the intro. So not the abstract, but the intro to the article itself. So that takes me to let me read you the ones I've got here. So, groundwater residence time and aquifer recharge in multi-layered, semi-confined, and faulted aquifer systems using environmental tracers. So that's a whole mouthful, but that's related to us here in Florida, as these are looking at ways to evaluate how well the aquifer recharges. So interesting in that way. This next one is new insights into nitrate dynamics in a karst groundwater system gained from in situ high-frequency optical sensor measurements. So they've got some high-tech methods of checking the nitrate dynamics in the karst groundwater system. So that is of interest to us here if we are trying to keep track of pollution, nitrites. Phosphorus retention and fractionization in a eutrophic wetland. A 1-year mesocosm experiment under fluctuating flood conditions. So a mesocosm is the middle. The microcosm is small, macrocosm big, mesocosm is in the middle. So this is talking about phosphorus retention in wetlands. So we talk about Lake Okeechobee and we talk about the Everglades. This is a study that looks at one of the primary pollutants down there, phosphorus. And then this last one here, new regional sea level scenarios help communities prepare for future economic risks. And this comes from NOAA, N-O-A-A. So again, we talk about radical climate change and how communities are starting to think about it. Like I said earlier, Pensacola is one of them, as well as Southwest Florida. So let me take a look here real quick. And okay, so let me go on to the next section here. So upcoming events. All right, so there's the Support Divestment and Stop Sabal Trail Pipeline. That's actually happening right now. So it's after the bank closes, but if you haven't gotten your money out of your bank and put it into a credit union or a local bank, so I'm talking big banks, Wells Fargo, SunTrust, all the biggies, get your money out of them. There's also water conservation expert to discuss growth challenges, and this is an interesting individual here, Clay Henderson, water conservation expert, who's talking on the topic, and he talked about it today. I included this because this guy looks pretty interesting, and I'd like to keep an eye on what he's doing. And so this event happened today. We all missed it, but we could look forward to more here in the Central Florida area. Collier County Waterkeeper at Naples Boat Show, Naples Municipal Airport, Friday through Sunday. I don't have a link for this because the Collier County Waterkeeper didn't create an event or anything. But if you're in Naples, if you're in Southwest Florida, at the municipal airport, they're having a Naples Boat Show. So you can go down there and talk to them. And on Sunday at 1, one of their representatives will be speaking to the public. So if you're down there, check that out. Okay, so Manatee County is to discuss the future of their water recharge project. So they're going to meet on January, or they already met. My bad. So this actually is old news, and I'm going to just pull this. Apologies for that. Okay, so Water Cooperative to discuss plans. So Polk County Water Cooperative plans an open meeting Tuesday for elected officials to explain how it's working and what the members can see in the future. So this is coming up next Tuesday. And so if you're in Polk County, that is where you'll want to go. It doesn't really say much more than that. You will probably want to look into your local government to find out where exactly that is being held. Brevard Stop Sabal Trail. Okay, so now I'm getting into some Facebook events here. So this is tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. at 2500 Parkway Drive, Melbourne, Florida, 32935. And the details are, this will be our second meeting to continue to map out the projects tied to Brevard, plan events, and come together. Please bring a few friends as there are multiple LNG, liquid natural gas projects hitting Brevard right now. And Brevard will also have a pipeline built soon. So I mentioned earlier about the dredging of Cape Canaveral, Port Canaveral. This is a group that probably is very aware of that and is looking to mitigate that, stop that as best as possible. So again, that's Brevard Stop Sabal Trail tomorrow from 2 to 4. Okay, this next one is Orlando says stop no dapple, stop Sabal Trail. And this is from tomorrow from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And I'm sorry, this is Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And so the details here is by the amphitheater and walking around the lake. So that's Lake Eola, downtown Orlando. Bring your signs. We are going to peacefully protest the pipelines and discuss what we can do to help stop the progress that is already underway. Lots to cover. Let's make phone calls to government officials. Please come out and invite all your friends. Share on your pages. Thanks for showing up. Showing that we will not stand for polluted water. Bring sage, drums, good vibes, and open minds. All right, so that is Sunday, 1 to 4, Lake Eola Park, 512 East Washington Street, Orlando, 32801. Then we have the Sabal Trail pipeline protest the 23rd. So that's Monday in Tallahassee. And that's at Florida State Capitol, 400 South Monroe Street, Tallahassee, Florida, 32399. All right, and the details here. Hold regulatory agencies accountable for the devastation of our wetlands, water bodies, springs, caves, and environmentally sensitive lands. Shut down construction of Sabal Trail in the Florida Southeast Connection and the Florida Southeast Connection frac gas pipelines projects. Okay, so again, that's Monday at noon, starting at noon at the Capitol building in Tallahassee. Then we have another, so this actually, I have another event here, Facebook event, that is essentially the same thing. It says from 12 noon to 5 p.m. noon. So hold regulatory agencies accountable. So we've got those two. Now we've got also on Monday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. What we've got is Fort Myers Beach Town Hall protest for local water quality tests. So we as the South Florida Clean Water Movement invite you to join us at the next Fort Myers Beach Town Council meeting to demand localized water quality tests and provide information to the general public now. All right, so this is John Heim pushing forward, making sure that their water is clean and safe down there. So if you're down there, please show up and help him out. Again, it's Monday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Fort Myers Town Council meeting, Town Hall. So check that out if you're there. Then the next thing I've got here is the Florida Senate Committee meeting notice, the Appropriations Subcommittee on the Environment and Natural Resources. So I will be going to Tallahassee again this Wednesday to again cover the discussion on Negron's plans to send the water south. So I'll be broadcasting live from there, and I'll be there hopefully with Troy Brown and Dave Preston and a few others from Bull Sugar, and we should hopefully have a good showing, see what we can do. So pay attention to that, stay tuned to that, and if you're up there in Tallahassee and you want to say something, you've got something good to say, let us know, and we'll see what we can do about helping you get up there with us. So that's another big thing. That's Wednesday the 25th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the Senate building on the Capitol Hill in Tallahassee. Okay, so also going on the 26th, this is Thursday, rally against Sable Trail Pipeline at Bill Nelson's office. So this is from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is at Bill Nelson's office at 225 East Robinson Street, Suite 410 in Orlando, Florida, 32801. So if you're here in the Central Florida area, you're here in Orlando on Thursday, and you would like to help out, you can come downtown and lend your hand. The details are, let us go to the office of a man who said he would stand up against the Keystone Pipeline, but ask why he's not standing up in opposition to the very dangerous Sable Trail Pipeline. So, right, he's against the Keystone, but not against one that comes through our own state. And interestingly, I mean, Bill Nelson has been a senator and a politician here in the state of Florida for a long time. He went up in the space shuttle. He's been more on the liberal side earlier in his career, but he has not been as liberal, as progressive in the later part of his career as he once was. So he's actually kind of, in my mind, a model of the politician that's sort of worn out their time. And while he did some great things, and I admire him, and I like a lot of the things he's done, he has sort of worn out his usefulness. So I feel like we need to put some pressure on him and let him know that, we're not just going to stand idle and let him, just sort of fade off. We need him to continue being what he used to be for us. So that is Bill Nelson. Okay, I've got another link here also to another event for the Bill Nelson. And then the last one I've got here is Walk for Water and Speak for the Springs. And this is actually next Saturday, so not tomorrow, but the following Saturday. And I normally don't go that far in advance, but this looks like a great event. So the details here is, join us for Walk for Water and Speak for the Springs on January 28, 2017. We will walk 2 miles through Denellen, bringing awareness to the pipeline, awareness about the pipeline, and we will end at the City Hall Park, where we will have a number of speakers on topics ranging from our springs to liquid natural gas stations and more. We will be meeting at the southeast corner of the Walmart parking lot at 10:30 a.m., and that is 11012 North William Street, Denellen, Florida 34432, and we will walk together at 11 a.m. to the City Hall Park, where the speakers will begin at 12. All right, so again, that's next Saturday, not tomorrow, in Denellen, Florida. Okay, let me take a look here. And, yep, all right, so, yeah, Eric, I used to surf Cocoa Beach and all those areas over there, so I'm certainly concerned as well. All right, so finishing up here, what I've posted here is outreach. Water is Life movement, standing beyond Standing Rock. This is a radio show, a podcast show, a webcast show. I don't even know how to call these things sometimes. That I was on with Jim Graywolf Petruzzi. And so if you care to listen to that, I talk with Melissa Mays of Flint, and we discuss water issues. And it's actually a great discussion. We discussed more about what was going on in Michigan, but I kind of like that because I got to hear a lot about what they're dealing with. And that's basically foreshadowing what we're going to deal with here eventually if we don't start making a difference. And then this morning, or today at noon, I was on an inaugural day chat with the news show with Greg Smithwick and Corey Cottrell, my buddies from over in Pasco County. So basically, they have a new variety show, and I was supposed to go on there and talk about eminent domain, but really I started talking about water as I want to do. And it's a fun little talk if you want to catch that out. And then wrapping this up, what I've got here is I've got some videos here. So I mentioned earlier videos about the weekend, the positive experience that I felt at the movement. It was, in fact, I had never been at a protest where I felt so much positivity and felt so much goodness. Even with the police officers scowling us down, even with 70 plus police officer vehicles just pouring in. Oh man, it was just something else. So hopefully you'll get a chance to watch those videos and get a sense for what I felt, what everybody else felt. It was a wonderful thing. And then other announcements, as always, sign the Now or Never Glades petition. So it's at the bottom of this webpage. If you haven't signed it yet, click on that, sign it. If you don't, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to do. So sign the Now or Never Glades petition. And then lastly, protect South Florida drinking water from radioactive waste. So this is what I mentioned earlier. If you want to sign the change.org petition, and you should, this is where you can do that. So folks, that is all I have for this week. And I'm sure that the 3 people I have left watching me, I'm amazed that you were able to get through all of that. But I appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. I want to thank everybody who showed up to the Suwannee River State Park this weekend. I want to thank especially the 8 water protectors who sacrificed themselves to make a stand on Monday, especially on Martin Luther King holiday. I want to thank everybody who is supportive in the water movement. I want to thank Jim Graywolf Petruzzi and all the Standing Rock folks for all the support that they're giving us here in Florida. And I just want to say, today is the first day in what many of us foresee is some difficult, possibly dark times. And I just want to say, in parting, that it doesn't have to be that way. We can stand up, we can stand strong, we can stand together. And if we can, and if we do, we're going to get through this. So people, let's stand strong, let's unite, one love. This is Adam Dubbin, Save Florida Waters Now, Florida Waters Weekly, signing out.